Why? Because in Kufa, theology is changing. In Kufa, they're making a theology out of it. And Abu Bakr and Umar become the worst people. So they said, do you curse Abu Bakr and Umar? And Zayd ibn Ali said, Wazirayu Rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These were the wazirs of the Prophet. You want me to curse Abu Bakr and Umar? No, not possible. I am simply against the Umayyads, basically, right? And this shows us the real clash between theological Shi'ism and political Shi'ism. The Ahlul Bayt were Shia politically, not theologically. And the Shia of Kufa became Shia, what we call Shia. The irony of ironies, when Zayd came, they rejected their own Imam as being too Sunni, basically. They rejected their own Imam, that you don't curse Abu Bakr and Umar, how can we fight behind you? So they did not fight behind him, and the Umayyads came, sorry, the Abbasids this time, not the Umayyads, the Abbasids came, and the Abbasids massacred Zayd, and this was the beginning of what we call Zaydi Shi'ism. Zaydi Shi'ism is a different branch of Shi'ism. It is still strong and powerful in Yemen. The only country in the world where you have Zaydi Shia is Yemen. And you have the Ithna Ashari Shia, which is the Shia of Pakistan and Bahrain and Iran and Iraq. This is 12er Shi'ism. You compare the doctrines of Zaydi Shi'ism with 12er Shi'ism, and you see the reality between political Shi'ism and theological Shi'ism. Zaydi Shi'ism respect Abu Bakr and Umar. Zaydi Shi'ism does not curse the Sahaba. Zaydi Shi'ism don't consider the Imam to be infallible and there's one Imam and Allah. All of this is not there in Zaydi Shi'ism, right? Zaydi Shi'ism is the real Shi'ism of the Ahlul Bayt. There's no theology that the 12er Shi'ism went a whole different way. And that's the story beyond the scope of this. The final point, and it will take 5-10 minutes, the final point. Who is to blame? Who is to blame for the massacre of Hussein? The Sahaba that were alive at the time, they knew exactly who to blame. The companions squarely placed the blame on the people of Kufa. The number one culprits were the very people who claimed to be the partisans of Ali. And it is authentically narrated in the books of hadith, not even the books of history. Muslim, Imam Ahmad, Tirmidhi, we have these in the books of hadith. That when Salama, who is Salama? The wife of the Prophet ﷺ, when she heard of the death of Hussein and the martyrdom of Hussein, she said, may Allah's la'na be upon the people of Iraq. They were the ones who murdered him. قَتَلُوهُ قَاتَلَهُمُ اللَّهُ. They killed him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curse them. They seduced him. They promised him. And then they abandoned him right at the very end. And we have the even more famous narration of the senior most Sahabi, who is Abdullah ibn Umar, the most respected of the Sahaba alive. He's not pro-Yazid. He doesn't like the Umayyads. He doesn't like the politics going on. And the famous, this hadith is in Bukhari. This hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim. What is it? When a group of Hujjaj came to Mecca, right? And Ibn Umar was there. And they said, oh, this is Umar, let's ask him a question. So one of them comes and he says, oh, Ibn Umar, if I swat a mosquito and the blood comes, is my ihram broken? Now, remember in ihram, you're not supposed to hunt, right? So, and of course, I mean, Sunni fiqh, I don't know any fiqh. Mosquitoes are not hunting. You don't hunt mosquitoes, right? So you can swat a fly and mosquito. So if I swat a mosquito, do I have to pay dam fidya for this blood? And he was shocked. He goes, where are you from? He said, from Kufa, from Iraq. He said, wa ajaban. Amazing are you people. Amazing are you people. You kill the grandson of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You murder him. And now you come and ask me about the blood of a mosquito? Now who is he blaming? The people of Kufa. And wallahi, this is crystal clear. And we have to say this no matter how painful or awkward it is. This is the truth. And that is why this group beats themselves to this day. This is the truth that nobody can deny. And the Sahaba that were alive, none of them is pro-Yazid. Wallahi, it's impossible for a believer to be pro-Yazid. But being anti-Yazid doesn't necessarily mean we agree with everything that happened there. No, not at all. We say that the people who promised Hussein should have been the ones that lived up to the promise. Where were they when Ibn Aqil is thrown? Where were they when Hussein is camped outside their city for 6 solid days? Where were they? Instead of cursing everybody else in the world, even those who were born before Hussein, wallahi, they need to look at their own selves. Wallahi, this is the truth. They need to look at what they themselves have done, and their betrayal, and their cowardice, and the fact that they were bribed so easily from what they promised him. So, the number one culprit, according to our own sources and their own sources, that's why they beat themselves on that day, and they continue to do so. The number one culprits are those who seduced, those who promised, those who swore the most solemn oaths, and then they disappeared بين عشية وضحاها, between the morning and an afternoon. They all disappeared from Ibn Aqil, and not one of them showed up when Hussein is camped outside. These are the people, instead of cursing those who were born before Hussein, wallahi, they need to look at themselves and what they have done. That's number one. Okay, they're cowards. They're traitors who betrayed Hussein. Okay, but they didn't pull the trigger, as we say. They didn't fight with the sword. So, who then is the one who's guilty of the blood? They're guilty of cowardice and betrayal. And wallahi, that's the biggest guilt. Because if they had stood up, Karbala would not have happened. If the people of Kufa had stood up, they would have protected Hussein. They would have had to negotiate. Something would have been done. So that's the number one culprit. Number two, who is the mastermind? Clearly the mastermind is Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad is the main culprit, the governor, this impetuous, arrogant young man that was placed to be the governor. And Ibn Ziyad, we give him the lion's share of the blame. And there is no doubt, it is clear even in his own lifetime that Allah punished him. His whole lifetime was just uprisings and intrigue and backstabbings until he died a miserable death. The forces of Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, another internal uprising, he was killed by the forces of Mukhtar. And notice the irony of ironies, and this is sunnat Allahi fi khalqihi. His own head was decapitated, and his head was brought in front of the people of Mukhtar on a plate. And it was shown just like the head of Hussein was shown to him. And this is in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. This isn't Tirmidhi, not even the books of history. And they say when the head was brought in front of the majlis, everybody was terrified. Why? Because out of nowhere, a snake came into this grand audience and made its way straight into the head and went into the nose and resided in the skull of Ibn Ziyad. This isn't Tirmidhi. It's not even in the books of history. Sunan al-Tirmidhi mentions that the head of Ibn Ziyad was punished in this way in front of the people to see. So this is Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad is the brains, but he didn't actually come to the battle. Ibn Ziyad is the brains and he has the lion's share. And if he wasn't so stubborn, then might have taken another turn. Who gets the lion's share of the physical blame? No doubt the leader of the army, Umar ibn Sa'd, we accuse him of being a coward to Ibn Ziyad. From the books, it seems he was very reluctant. He tried his best to get out, but when push came to shove, he didn't get in the way. And when Umar ibn Sa'd was a little bit too cowardice, as we said, Ibn Ziyad sent Shimr. So Umar ibn Sa'd, we don't say he's innocent. He could have done something, but whatever got in the way, and he didn't really get between them. So there is some share on him. But when it comes to the actual sword and the blood on the sword, there is no doubt that it is Shimr ibn Dhil Jawshan, Shimr, and then they say Anas ibn Sinan is one of his thugs as well that was with him. These were the two people that really, and along with 3-4 other people that I mentioned some of them by name, but it was Shimr who charged forth, the first person to raise his sword and go towards Ibn Rasulullah. Everybody else was respectful. Everybody else, who's going to raise the sword against Hussein, right? It was Shimr who did that and charged, and when he charged, his 3-4 thugs basically charged with him, and him along with Anas and the 2-3, they're the ones who killed him. So all of these are guilty. Okay, we went down. We need to now go up. And with this we conclude. We need to go up. We went down. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad and Umar. And how about up? Who's the one? Where does the buck stop? Yazid. Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan. What is our position about Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan? There's a whole spectrum of opinion. Yazid ibn Muawiyah, Yazid ibn Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. There's a whole spectrum of opinion within Sunni Islam. And there's not one unanimous consensus within Sunni Islam. You have those within Sunni Islam who curse him by name and call him a kafir. And they say he is the worst person to ever have existed. And let us also be honest here, and it really saddens me to say this, but we also have the opposite extreme. We have those to this day, they make every excuse for Yazid. And they make him out to be a righteous man who circumstances were beyond his control. And they try to exonerate him from every single crime that he is accused of. And wallahi, this is bordering on the fitna called Nasibism. This is beyond the scope of this class, but this is ridiculous. You're going to say Yazid was innocent? The buck stops there. Yazid was in charge. Yazid was the boss. Yazid sent Ibn Ziyad. We cannot overlook this fact. Now, therefore, in my humble opinion, and this is the position of Ibn Hajar and Al-Dhahabi and Ibn Kathir and Ibn Taymiyyah, this is the standard moderate Sunni position. This is what I believe as well. I believe, it's up to you to take your own position, and I'm following here Ibn Hajar and the majority of scholars, that Yazid takes a share of the blame, but he did not intend for Hussein to be killed. He sent the ruthless guy to be ruthless with anything